You can remember movement using memory techniques almost as easily as you can remember something like a new language or computer coding. It's just a small change from the usual techniques, and it still relies on translating boring information into exciting information. So from sort of academic information into something that's stimulating and visual and easy to remember. So there's sort of 3 steps here when you're going about remembering movement using memory techniques. The first one is to make sure that you really understand the movement that it is you're trying to remember. So often this process is quite exploratory, and you will realize that there's parts of the movement that you don't know, you don't understand the correct way to do it. And that is great because it's part of the learning process. So step 1, understand the movement. And there's a list of questions that you can run through yourself to make sure that you do actually really understand the movement. And they're in a blog of mine. It's in great detail. I've put a link in the description below for you. The second part is to create an image or a story that represents the information that you discovered from that first step, from that exploratory process. And then the third step is just to attach that image or story that you've now made onto the movement and onto its name, if you need to know the name as well. Now, this sounds very complicated, but it's actually really quite simple in practice. And once you get the hang of it, it's really going to speed up how quickly you can remember movement. So this step 1, where you go into quite a bit of detail in checking that you really understand what the movement is this most crucial step. Because if you don't understand something properly, it's very difficult to learn it. If you understand something, then it probably means that you've naturally remembered it as you've gone through that process. So this list of questions will help you to understand the movement itself. You might even need to go to your instructor or to Dr. Google and find out the answers to some of these questions along the way. But it's roughly questions about the movement itself. So what shape does the movement make in space, and on what plane is it in space? You know, is it horizontal, vertical? Is it on an angle? What plane is it on? And what pattern does it make? So, you know, this might be, you know, it might be making a zigzag pattern, and that pattern could be on the ground or it could be in space. Is the pattern consistent? Does it change? Is it sort of a circular pattern and then it's a sharp, straight pattern? So you want to sort of question all of these things, run through the movement in your mind. Then you want to think about things like what size is the movement compared to your body? So is it as big as your finger, the movement you're supposed to be doing? Is it as big as your whole arm? Is it as tall as, would it come up to your shoulder? You know, if it was a kick, it might come all the way up to your shoulder. If it was sign language, it might just be as tall as a finger. And does that size of the movement stay the same the whole way through the movement, or does it change? Does it start small and then go big, or is it big the whole time? So you want to sort of think through those things. Then you want to also consider what body part or parts it is. So is it, you know, your hand and your arm and your shoulder, or is it, you know, your hand, arm, shoulder, head? And then you want to think, does it all happen together, or is it consecutive movement? Does it go one, then the other, then the other, then the other? And this is the same as if you're doing, these questions are the same if you're doing origami or if you're doing sign language or whatever it is you're doing. These questions are still valid. Then you want to think about the speed of the movement. Is it a slow speed, slow and smooth? Is it fast and staccato? Is it a changing rhythm? Does it start slow and then go quick and staccato, or quick and smooth? You know, so you want to kind of analyze those types of things. And then you want to think about the name of the movement and what image could spring to mind to represent that name that you'll also attach to this image. So for Taekwondo, side kick is yop chagi. I already know chagi's kick, so I'm just trying to remember yop. So for that, I think yop sounds a bit like hop, but I know I'm not supposed to hop in that move. So maybe it's like yellow highlighter on the word hop, like don't hop, yop chagi. So that would be just for that little part, just to attach the name to it as well. And then lastly, you want to think about what personal corrections or feedback has my teacher or instructor given me on this particular move, if they've given you any, and how can I incorporate that into this memorization process as well? And it's definitely feasible, and you know, you can do it. So with Yop Chagi, the sidekick for me, for example, I won't go into great detail because you don't need to learn Taekwondo, but the image the shape that it makes in space is like a right angle ruler with one leg, the kicking leg, and then the supporting leg, it's a sort of like a semicircle. And for some reason, because it's very clearly angular in my head, it reminds me of rulers. So I just see them laid out in the actual plane in space in my mind that my legs take at the same time, because I've gone through that process and kind of analyzed it. Then to attach the Yop, the name Yop, as in yellow don't hop, I just see a yellow highlighter tracing around this ruler, and I don't want the ruler to hop because it's going to make the highlighter flick off and make a mark. So it's Yop Chagi, and I can see it in space, and it's attached to the name and the movement. And then for the corrections that I've been given, it gets a little bit more complicated, but it's because I've made this up for myself. When you make up your own images, it's going to make more sense to you. So one of the corrections that I have is, you know, making sure that I really twist my hips as I kick out my leg so it goes nice and square. And so I just see that as making sure that the ruler is really nice and square in space and it's not at all warped. And I need to also flick out my leg, so it needs to be like a sharp sort of kick out movement. And for that, when I'm seeing the highlighter go around that ruler, I see that the thickness of the highlighter as it's drawn around the ruler has changed as it went quick. So it was fatter and then it went thin, which is what would happen if you were drawing with a highlighter. Sounds super complicated, but trust me, once you work through an example for yourself, with something that you're trying to learn, it will make a lot more sense. And the very process of breaking down all those different components, questions, and just running quickly through each one will quickly tell you what it is you understand about the movement and what it is you don't. And so maybe some questions you need to ask or you need to analyze next time you're in class. So as I said, I'll put the links to those different blogs and videos to help you piece this all together in the description below. But I strongly urge you to go ahead and give it a go. You're going to find that not only are you going to learn information, physical information, faster in the long run, you're also going to learn it better. So you will, through the analyzation process, be doing the movement better than you would without it. If you like this video, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. That way you'll know when my other memory videos come out. Head over to masterrecall.com and drop in your email, and I'll make sure that you receive memory tips and freebies that are only available to my subscribers.